Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are.
Good afternoon, y'all. Good morning.
Or morning. Or maybe evening if you're tuning in from Europe, wherever the case.
That's true. Or later. Somebody might tune in later. So, hey, everybody. This is Caitlin. I moved to a men's national director, and I'm here in Sacramento, California. And we could just go in order. I think we're in the same order as far as what we can see.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Keon Bliss. I'm the grassroots director for the Move to Men Coalition.
And Greg Coleridge, outreach director here in Ohio. Sunny Ohio, sort of.
So we just wanted to jump on. I know that Jessica and I came on over the weekend, and some folks tuned in there, so they got a little bit of a sneak preview, and folks who are on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube have been seeing this. But today is actually the day. We found out this morning that our amendment was reintroduced, and it is now 5 times that we have been in the U.S. House of Representatives. So high fives. Way to go, everybody. Thank you so much. We also know that we will be introduced with the most co-sponsors to date on an introduction for us. So good job there, everyone. And we still need to add co-sponsors. So in the email that we just sent out, which probably brought you here, but in case you're just tuning in, make sure that you call your rep today and tell them to sign on to, now we could say HJR 48, because that's the number. And our goal is to get 100 this year. And we are at 50. So we still have a ways to go.
But we're halfway home. More than half if you include Jayapal is the initial.
That's
so
true. Then we're 51%
of the way there. So everything else is just now coasting, right? But we need your support, need your help.
So let's explain what the amendment does. Keon, you want to jump in and do that just for anybody who maybe just found their way here and didn't know what they came into?
Yep, totally. So for those of you that are just tuning in and are still new to the amendment, HJR 48 is short for the People Amendment, is the bill number. And basically we established 2 key principles within the constitutional framework. First and foremost being that corporations are not people, namely that the constitutional rights established in our founding document are reserved for natural persons, human beings only, and that artificial entities, that includes corporations, that includes unions, that includes nonprofit organizations like Move to Amend, are subject to regulation by the people through local, state, and federal law. And it makes it clear that none of the legal rights, the statutory privileges that are given to it by state law cannot be construed as inherent or inalienable, eliminating the court-created doctrine of corporate constitutional rights. And the second part of the amendment makes clear that money is not speech, namely that it makes it an express duty of Congress, but not just Congress, but also the states and local governments to regulate, limit, or otherwise prohibit political expenditures for the express purpose of guaranteeing that all people have access to the political process, regardless of how much wealth they have. And it also makes sure that no candidate, regardless of how much wealth they have a substantial advantage when running for office, so that everybody can actually participate and run to be representative of their community. It also makes clear that all permissible contributions are subject to public disclosure, meaning that we actually get to know who is spending money and who is putting it to what party or campaign. And it would close the court-created loophole in the First Amendment, making clear that no amount of political spending can be construed as free speech, and that none of these provisions in the amendment would make clear that none of these provisions would infringe upon the freedom of the press to do its job.
Key shit. Right. Pretty fundamental. Shouldn't need an amendment to make that clear, but because of the Supreme Court, here we are.
It's a revolutionary concept, right? That people are people and money is not speech. I know it's radical, right? It's just
right. Bare minimum things. It really does answer like a fundamental question of who is a person in this country worthy of protection and what constitutes actual speech, because in the United States, we're the only country in the world that hasn't actually answered this question, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it makes clear, and it is the platform upon which all the other legislation that I betcha every single person out there cares about and wants to see happen. This ties back to that and makes it really fun on a fundamental level, whether it's going to be possible or not. So, for example, our lead, Congresswoman Jayapal from Washington State, she is also the lead on very important Medicare for All bill. But when that passes, if the We the People Amendment doesn't pass as well, then insurance corporations will have our Constitution available to them to use to wield against us, along with the Supreme Court, to make the argument that provisions that would allow universal health care for everyone violate their constitutional rights, for example. We don't know exactly how they might make that argument, but we can count that it probably will happen. And the same is true for when Congress ever addresses climate change, which is obviously needed, yesterday / 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But it's not going to be possible for us to enact the kinds of legislation that we need that are all on the table in Congress, unless this amendment goes along with it. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
We have heard at the beginning of the year, coming from both quote unquote progressives in Congress as well as congressional leaders, Democrats, the same two words in terms of describing what's needed. 2 words. Know what the 2 words are? Go big. Remember that? Go big. Now, there's different definitions about what they mean by going big, but when it calls, it's been applied to the American Rescue Plan, and some people have said, this infrastructure plan, dealing with the environment, dealing with helping people in need. We need to go big. This amendment, compared to others out there of equivalent nature, is not tiny, it's not moderate, it's not pathetic, it's not mediocre, it's going big. So it is relative to what people say we need in terms of size, the solution. We need to go big, but it's realistic in that it needs to be the appropriate scale to the problems that we're dealing with.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you pointed that out. And it really is, without it, I don't know what we're doing on any other issue. So, if your organization out there that's working on fill in the blank issue hasn't signed on to endorse the We the People Amendment yet, that's a fundamental action step that you can take in addition to pressuring your Congress members to get them to sign on. But we need, this is only going to happen through a movement. That's what we have been building for the last 10 years. That's why our amendment is always, reintroduced with more and more support, and that movement needs to continue to get bigger. So stand with us, as an individual. If you haven't signed the Move to Amend petition, then you can do that. But really the support of other organizations that understand how this issue of money in politics and the issue of corporate constitutional rights and the perversion of the legal system in favor of corporations and the wealthy, both through, political contributions, but also through the ability to overturn laws that we pass to try and protect our public. That is critical for the work that you are doing, no matter what issue you're working on.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I mean, this amendment, this issue that we're working on with corporate constitutional rights is one of the few issues that really transcends the political partisan divide, as well as intersects with every struggle for justice happening in our time. So for Move to Amend, this isn't a political issue for us with passing this amendment. This is a human rights issue that really gets to the core of what we have been struggling with our entire history in this country. If you want things like Medicare for all and single-payer health care, you need to get through a gigantic industry that is big pharma and private and even for-profit hospitals that still have huge sway. If you want to make serious progress on things like climate change, you have to compete with this aging monopolies that are established within the fossil fuel industry. If you want to get things like police accountability and end the pandemic that is police brutality and racism in this country, you have to compete with law enforcement associations and war contractors that are spending millions of dollars to influence public policy in their favor. So If there is one key issue, if you have a number one issue out there, that's really important to you, make this one your number two, because if we can pass this amendment, we stand to level the playing field and actually open the door for what a participatory democracy actually looks like in this country and make serious headway on all of our respective struggles for justice.
So we wanted this to be, quick and, just sharing the breaking news. Obviously, there's going to be more to say over the course of this week as we get a sense of, who was able to get in on that initial co-sponsorship list and then what that means. Those of you who have been following us know that our goal is to get 100 this year, and we're really trying to do that right here at the beginning of the year. I'm still counting April as the beginning of the year because sure, beginning-ish of the year. And so basically as soon as possible, we want to get to that 100.
If you start with the Chinese New Year, we're still at the very beginning.
That's right. That's right. It's all relative.
It's all right. It's all relative.
And so that's why it's so important that you call your rep, but more critically than that, as we know, collective action is always more powerful, more leverageable than individual action. So take your individual action because it literally will take you 5 minutes and it's like no big deal. It's easy. If you click that link, that takes you to a page where you put in your contact information and then it will just pop up with the telephone number to call your rep and a little script that you can use as talking points. So
smile and dial.
No-brainer. So easy.
Smile and dial. That's right.
But in addition to that, we are trying to set up meetings with all of these offices that we're trying to get to come on. There are about 130 different offices that we're targeting. And as we work through those, then we will expand to more. And so we need you to join us in those meetings. So let's take a minute and let people know who we know has already signed on so that they can get a sense of whether that phone call should be a thank you or an urge to get it done. And then also, Alfonso, if you could share the link to the 117 campaign, if you want to plug in and get your rep on board, if they're not on this list that we're about to read out, then plugging in through that page is the way to do it. And we're setting up virtual meetings, and we want to have a virtual meeting with every single one of our targets, which you'll see on that page, by the end of the month. And if possible with the rep, and if not possible, then with one of their office members. So let's read through this list. Maybe the best way to do it would be to do a handful each and then just kind of pass it over. Greg, you want to start off? Do you have it in front of you?
I do, and apologies if I butcher any of the names, and that may be the case with the first one. Nanette Diaz-Barragan, Earl Blumenauer, Suzanne Bonamici, Brandon Boyle, Corey Bush, Salud Carbonjal, and Matthew Cartwright.
Kian, why don't you pick up where he left off if you've got it in front of you? If not, I do.
Yep. Let's see. Other congressional co-sponsors are Judy Chu, David Cicilline, Angie Craig, Danny Davis, Peter DeFazio, Susan Delbean, and Anna Eshu.
And then I'll keep going. So Jesus Chuy Garcia, Raul Grijalva, Brian Higgins, Jared Huffman, Henry C. or Hank Johnson Jr., and Marcy Captor.
Then continuing, Ro Khanna, Derek Kilmer, Barbara Lee, Stephen Lynch, Betty McCollum, James McGovern, Jerry McInerney, and Seth Moulton.
And continuing, Jerry Nadler, Grace Napolitano, Joe Nagoose, Mary Newman, Eleanor Holmes Norton, Elon Omar, Ed Perlmutter, Dean Phillips, Chelly Pingree, and Mark Pocan.
Then I'll finish it up. Ayanna Presley, Jamie Raskin, Linda Sanchez, Janice Shakowski, Adam Smith, Jackie Spear, Mark Takano, Mike Thompson, Rashida Tlaib, Paul Tonko, Lori Trahan, and Peter Welch. So thank you to those representatives for standing up and making clear that they're ready to be leaders and champions of this amendment, signing on from the very beginning of the 117th Congress introduction. And so that takes us to 51, obviously, including Pramila Jayapal, not to be left out, our important lead whose office we work with to make this happen, and who we worked with last Congress as well. So that's who we have so far. If your rep is not on that list, or if there's somebody that you think should be on that list and you know somebody in their district, then there's still more to go. We have been in conversation with just about every single office. Again, if you go to the 117th campaign, that link that we the last link that we shared, you can see the list of targets. What a target means is that we think that they are a likely candidate to come on early because of their past support for bills that relate to this issue, or things that they have said, or the fact that they have taken our pledge to amend, or the fact that they live in a district where we have passed a ballot initiative that has passed and their constituents have told them that they want to see this amendment happen, or depending on what caucus they're in and kind of who they normally align with. And so that is the list of targets. But if your rep is not one of those targets, then that's okay. We can still reach out to them. We just, we've picked targets kind of based on traditional campaign strategy of like, go for your low-hanging fruit, your most likely folks, people who we already have been working on, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I see that there's a question about whether there's an email option for reps. We're really asking folks to make a call today because and we do emails as well. You can certainly go to your rep's website and you can generally contact them straight through that form on their site, which most of them have, or there'll be an email address that you can send. But we're asking everybody to make a call today because that carries more weight with the office than an email does.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, the one single message that we've gotten most from congressional offices when we talk with them is that they really need to hear from their constituents that this is a priority for them and that they want their Congress member to sign on to this amendment. So yeah, any and all means that you have, definitely call them today because they take down all those names and tallies of who want them to sign on to which amendment, as well as email them and write them. And if you can, schedule a meeting with their office as well if they haven't signed on yet, because I mean they really the more that we are contacting them, the more that they're hearing from you all and their constituents, the more likely they are to get to keep this on their radar and eventually work with us on this amendment.
Yep, and phone calls are just more impactful. Obviously, visits are even more impactful, but that's not realistic these days. So letters, personal letters would be great, but that's not quite with our time frame at the moment.
Right.
So a call is, relatively speaking, then along the continuum, the most effective. So please do, if you have a chance, make that call, as well as do other things.
Right. Plug in with us in all the ways that we mentioned before. If you're not already on the Move to Amend list, that's the best way to kind of find out how to plug in. And then what will be happening next? So we're going to continue to focus on the House until we, at least through the end of this month, and kind of take stock of what number we're at. Again, our goal is to get to 100 as soon as possible. I'd love us to get to 100 by the end of April. And I think that that's doable. And so, especially if we all lean in and make it happen. So we're going to continue to focus on the House for the rest of this month at least, and then we'll see how much more we have to do at the end of April. And I know that some folks have asked about senators, and some people are calling their senators today and telling them to introduce a companion bill, and that's great. That's totally fine. You can do that. As far as our national resources, we're going to continue to stay focused on the House for now. And we think that the larger the number of House supporters we can get, the better our case will be for the Senate. We are in conversation in an ongoing way with a number of different offices in the Senate. It has not yet been introduced in the Senate, and we don't have somebody who has committed. Well, we don't have somebody who is currently committed to doing that. We have had somebodies who have committed to doing that before, but various things have caused that to not come together and actually happen yet. But exactly, but yet. But for now, let's keep our eyes on the House. Let's not just disperse our resources. Let's stay focused and get to that number. And then also, you know, after we get our goal in the House, in addition to leaning on the Senate, we can go back to the movement building work that Move to Amend, you know, is so effective at, has been doing as kind of our core work, building this movement for power to actually make this amendment happen. Because even though we do have at this point 50, and I think we can get to 100, you know, congressional champions with the right kind of pressure, at the same time, we know that the impetus for this isn't really going to come from Congress without us making it happen and building that movement for power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need out there, with our help, to be the real leaders of this movement. It's not going to come from Congress. They will respond. They will react. But the real impetus, the real leadership has got to come from us. Right. We're the ones who have to take charge. We always think, oh, they're the ones that are out there leading. No. They generally, 9 times out of 10, if not 95 times out of 100, are the ones who follow because they don't have the backbone to do what is necessary, even when the evidence for what is necessary is literally right in front of their face. Sadly.
Right. The fact that we even are at this point right now with our being introduced in the 5th Congress with 50 co-sponsors on board as initial co-sponsors is entirely due to you all in our grassroots base that have been really leading the charge and keeping this on their radar and pushing this to make this demand. They wouldn't be listening otherwise. And that's really why, this victory of having this reintroduced this week with so many supporters in the House of Representatives is entirely testament to our tenacity as grassroots leaders and movement builders across the country. And we couldn't do this work without you. So anything that you can do to continue pushing this movement forward in addition to your other movement building work is all the more appreciated. And it really does mean the difference. But we have to do this together and really come across lines and participate in each other's movements to really put this over the top. Because this is just the first step within the broader movement for democracy. Once we can get this in, let's have an even deeper conversation of what participatory democracy looks like.
Absolutely. So I'm seeing a question from Christine, who's watching on YouTube, about whether her rep signed on. Rather than us going through the whole list again, if you want, Christine, you can tell us who your rep is and we can just quickly tell you. And then for everybody else, because I just want to keep this recording, as concise as possible to make it more likely that people will tune in later. So as soon as tomorrow, the amendment will be listed on the congress.gov website, and then we will update the Move to Amend website. And if it's not tomorrow, then it will be the next day or so. It will be soon. It's on their end, though, once that update happens. And worst case scenario, you call the office and they tell you they've already signed on and you say, great, thank you, right? So, and that's still an important call to make because they still hear, oh, this is something that matters. So we signed on and we have support and backing for it. So it's still important to call your rep, even if you know that we read off their name. Jared Huffman, I'm happy to say, Christine is a co-sponsor. So it'd be great if you would call his office as soon as we finish up here and tell him thank you. And Huffman's been with us for last 4 Congresses out of 5. And so we really appreciate it. Oh, and it looks like Alfonso did get a little ticker going at the bottom, so you can actually see who the reps are.
Nice going.
Thanks, Alfonso. But make that call anyway. If your rep is on that list, make that call and tell them thank you, because we need to make sure that they not only sign on, but that they're committed to speaking out publicly about it, showing leadership, helping us bring on colleagues, all of it. The more you tell them that this is what you want, the more solid their support will be.
The less afraid they will be.
Yes.
To actually speak out and support us and the like. And, we want them to share with their constituents that they're behind this. So the more cover we can give them, the bolder they will be and give the appearance that they're taking real leadership, which they are to a certain extent, but the more we can help them have greater backbone, then they'll have more backbone.
Exactly. And thank you, Christine, for making those calls. I'm sure that your support and all the folks in the 2nd District here in California are, why he continues to be a solid solid supporter of Move to Amend. So we have to get to our staff meeting, which we have every Monday, and we have a lot to do this week. And so we've got that in 5 minutes. So let's wrap this up. But let's remind folks how they can plug in. Keon, how can people donate if they want to support? You know, your time is really important, but the other thing that we really need is everyone to be ideally monthly supporters for Move to Amend.
Well, agreed, Caitlin. Well said. And if you are like many of us here are continue to support this movement, we really could use your donations. If you go to movetoamend.org/donate, you can make a one-time donation. And if you're so inclined and want to continue to keep us sustainable throughout the long-term campaign of this movement, consider donating monthly as it become a monthly sustainer by going to movetoamend.org/monthly and add your name and become a monthly sustainer of Move to Amend. Whether you're giving us $5 or $28 or even $1,000, any amount really helps. We are 100% grassroots funded, and we are committed to seeing this amendment through until its completion. So any amount helps. Really encourage anything that you can offer, and especially your volunteer support if you can as well.
And that includes, by the way, any or all of your pandemic check. If you don't need it, I mean, a lot of people need it, so great. But if you don't need any or all of it, please do consider supporting a portion of that or all of that to Move to Amend.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. And reminder, if you haven't already signed the Move to Amend petition, that's the best way to plug in. We also use that petition as an organizing tool. So when we have these meetings with your reps that we're talking about, it's important that we have as many people that we can say, you know, this many people in your district have asked you to sign on, and we're here with the weight of their signatures. And so let's make sure to do that. That's another really easy thing you can do. Get 10 people to sign the Move to Amend petition today, because that will make our case so much stronger as we're going to the rest of the House that has not signed on yet and getting them on board.
Really does help. Thank you much for all your support. And it's up to us really in the end to do this.
Right. For all we got, it's up to us.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for standing with Move to Amend and helping us get this far. Congratulations to us all on this significant day, and onward towards the next. The congress.gov site will be updating soon. You will get emails from us so we can let you know if we still need to get your rep, and we will be contacting you to come in and join us for a meeting if your rep is not already on. So be looking for those emails and ways to plug in. Thanks so much for all you do already. And thanks, Alfonso, for producing this as always. And we'll see you on Friday for Making Sense. We'll give a recap on how this week went, and any other news we'll have for you at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern on Fridays, like always. Bye.